We'll see how long this takes. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Killer Bees Podcast, Episode 8. Today, we have a special birthday guest, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Soxman and 108 himself, Darrin Brown. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to join you guys.
So we have 3 Killer Bees in the house today. And we're also joined by the delightful Keelin, Billue, as always. And we even are on video again for you. So check that out.
Woo! It's a big night, a big special night.
It is a big night. You know, the Sox have been playing really well. Some would say in spite of a certain Hall of Fame person, but they're still winning. Let's get excited about that. They swept a doubleheader yesterday. If you're a Bears fan, it was also a very special night because there's actually like a draft where I didn't feel like episodes of anxiety and depression, and I'm not used to that. So that was very exciting too. And even today, the Sox are doing pretty well against Shane Bieber, who a lot of people were afraid of facing, but they're hanging tight. Right now, the score is 4-3. But I actually feel pretty good about the Sox' chances today. How are you guys feeling about the Sox lately?
Guest goes first.
Well, I think it's been nice to see. I think they've been pretty unlucky the first part of the season. It's good to see guys like Moncada and Robert kind of turn things around from when they were getting some slumps early, but a lot of it was from bad luck, and a lot of people kind of doubted them early, especially on Twitter. But it's still early in the season. Even now, it's still fairly early. So hopefully, I'm thinking we'll see guys like even Grandal who will start to pick up the pace like those other 2 guys. And I think it's just up from here.
Yeah, I agree. It seems like everybody is kind of finding their groove, and it's still been early this whole time. So I personally haven't, there's obviously games where I'm like, that did not go well, but I haven't invested too many feelings into anything. I will say the first game in the Detroit series this week was one where I was like, okay, well, there are patterns that we probably should look at making sure we pay attention to and change. And some of those are even continuing today, like leaving runners on the base, like are happening right now in this game.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So some of those patterns, and then obviously with the first game against Detroit, Giolito was left in for a while, and he was not doing well. And that's not the first time that's happened either. So, yeah. So hopefully those things will be really focused on and continued to be looked at to improve.
Absolutely. I think there's a reason for optimism too with some of the Sox players coming on the mend. Engels should be back pretty soon, so that'll be nice. I never thought I would say that in a million years, but here we are. And I think the weirdest thing for me is just how it's basically only half of the Sox lineup that's hitting. And it's very reminiscent of last year where it's just like you have this black hole at the bottom of the lineup where you don't really have anybody, no matter who you plug in, kind of picking up the rest of the lineup and picking up the guys when Abreu's having an off night or Robert needs to take a rest or anything like that. There isn't that level of depth yet, and I don't know if that's something that will get addressed this season. I would imagine if Tony La Russa complains about it, something will happen, but otherwise I just don't know what will be done to kind of help shore up some of those pieces. But that's the only thing that's kind of been a area of concern, I would say.
Yeah. Darrin, I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, going back to the game on Tuesday, I believe, where Giolito was left in. I was at the ballpark for that. And you could tell he was getting frustrated as his pitch count was going up to, 110, 115. It was sort of like, why am I still in the game? And just
Yep.
when I got to the point of no return, it's just like, okay, well, why was he in there to get shelled? You had Hoyer warming up, but and they had an article I saw this morning on Baseball Prospectus about it, kind of La Russa's trying to do old school techniques in a modern era game. And so far it's not really meshing that well. So we'll have to see how that plays out the upcoming weeks and see if he tries to change anything.
Yeah, I think Tommy brought that up on an earlier podcast about how we might end up kind of like small balling our way through the season too. So yeah, seeing that come out sometimes is interesting, especially in terms of what are we doing strategy wise. So.
Yeah, I mean, I do think La Russa will adapt to it. The Giolito situation was really awkward because usually you don't see that happen with your supposed ace. Like that's usually the one guy that most all of the coaching staff is kind of has an understanding of what their needs are and where they're at their max or limit. And, frankly, I thought he was done after, getting out of that previous inning. And it was like, all right, he got out of it. This is good. Let's get some runs for him. And then he could bring in Hoyer and move on from there. When they didn't score, I had a feeling that they would bring him back, but I was really hoping that that wouldn't be the case. But that was kind of the point where it's like, all right, he's really struggling. And like you said, Darrin, you could tell that he was, all right, I've given it my all, and I clearly don't have anything left. When are you going to take me out? And it just never happened.
It reminded me of the first playoff game when he pitched last year against Oakland, where just kind of the idea where it's been even then where it would almost be better to play it on the safe side of saying, okay, you need to head out instead of, oh, you're doing well, we'll just leave you in there. It's better to, why not go to the bullpen? It's the 8th inning. We can, just play it safe.
Yeah.
And also, too, I thought leaving it at the place where he was at was a good confidence booster because, like, not that he needs it, but after everything that happened in Boston, I just thought that was like, okay, nice confidence builder, something to build on. You didn't pitch amazing because you only lasted 6 innings, but this is something that we can work with.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting thing to bring up in the context of what you said, Tommy, about him being a supposed ace. They're not all going to be winners. And then as we've seen with people who are kind of becoming our aces now, there's like not only physical crises, but also like confidence, like psychological crises. So I think you made a good point about that because that Boston game was rough. That was
bad.
Yeah, I had it on in the background. I was working, but I had it on in the background that day, and I was like, this is just like almost comical. It was like Benny Hill music running, like I was like, holy crap, what am I watching? So yeah, seeing that, after him doing that, how would you not be affected mentally? I mean, it's probably better to play it safe in that case. I think that's honestly what I was most a little annoyed about was that Lance Lynn was injured. And then, we don't want Lucas in a bad mental situation. So it's just like, what are these decisions with leaving people in like this? I think that was my main beef with that whole game.
And even post game too, like Tony La Russa answered in typical fashion, and yes, he took responsibility for leaving him in, but it almost was phrased in such a way of like, oh, I thought he'd be able to handle it. I guess he couldn't. And it was just kind of like, this is an area where it's like you want to build your guy up just a little bit instead of hanging him out to dry.
Yeah. And ultimately, I think you and I talked about this on the side during the game. Ultimately, it's like Giolito can't just like, yes, he could ask people to come to him, but I know that's not usually a thing they do unless they're really injured. Right, yeah. Exactly. Like he can't pull himself off the mound, and it is kind of, I mean, yes, we're armchair watching it, but it is like, what are you like, what are you thinking there? What is the strategy in this? And that part is interesting and unanswered for a bit.
Yeah.
I don't know if this would have anything to do with just the way coaches and managers do. I think of it similar to Pete Carroll's 4th and goal play call, or the goal line play call, or just 4th and goal in general, where the same thing with taking pitchers out like they did with Blake Snell in the World Series. There's so much that would say, maybe it is the right decision to pass, or maybe it is the right decision to take him out because the velocity is going down. But if it doesn't work, then say, oh, well, he was dealing. Why'd you take him out? They're more afraid to be wrong than they are trying to be right.
Yeah. What did you guys, Tommy, you kind of spoke to this, but what did you guys think about then him being put back in kind of in that scenario as well? Giolito.
I didn't think he had it, so I was surprised. I saw it coming only because the Sox didn't score, and you had a 1-run lead going into the inning, and I could see where maybe you don't want to bring the bullpen in just because they've been, frankly, the shakiest part of the roster so far. So I could understand it from that aspect, but really after that first at bat, I think it was like, okay, that was enough. Like let's take him out and get Hoyer in there and move on.
Yeah. Darrin?
I thought it was, in the grand scheme of things, it's La Russa, so maybe I wasn't necessarily surprised, but in a vacuum, it was pretty surprising just because, again, his pitch count was above 100, getting towards 110. And again, you could tell after Moncada didn't get that pop-up, he was frustrated right there, and you could start to see, okay, maybe it's time to take him out. He's getting a little frustrated. But, then they let it get to the point where they had to take him out. And said, well, could have taken him out before the homer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that couldn't have helped.
On the opposite side of things, how are you all feeling about Cease and Rodón, and even Kopech to a certain extent on the flip side of the rotation?
I'm very.
You go ahead.
I was very surprised by Kopech, just of how well he's done. I'm not surprised that he's done well. I'm surprised that he's done well to this extent. He's first in, a lot of the expected stats as far as pitchers on StatCast and all these other things. And even when he had to make that spot start there, very impressive. And the same thing with Cease in a shorter sample, just the one start yesterday. And I saw on Twitter, a friend of mine, Steven, he showed some stuff on StatCast where it looked like he was changing up his release point on his pitches earlier in the season. You could tell it'd be like, here it's a fastball, here it's a slider, or whatever way around. And then he's able to get it tighter in that start yesterday.
Yep.
And it paid off in that complete game.
That's awesome. Yeah. Same. I feel surprised. Like, I was already confident, a little more confident with Ethan Katz on board. And I think now it's kind of crazy to watch that really begin to pay off, because Rodón came back. That was obviously, Tommy, I believe you and I talked about that in an episode. One episode we were like, goodbye. And the next episode we were like, well, he's back. Okay, good. We want good things for him, but whatever. And so it's really awesome to see that kind of that story, just like redemption in a way for him. And then Cease last night was awesome. That was unexpected. So I hate to admit it, but like internally I had kind of given up on him a little. Not that I didn't want him to do well, but it's hard. I mean, you guys know it's hard to like watch it happen. So it's really awesome again to kind of see him do well. And he looked, like you said, Darrin, he looked so different. So it's really cool to see what I'm sure is Ethan Katz's influence start to really affect everybody.
And for Rodón, it's on point, like you said, just the redemption from all the kind of talk the last few years, and especially all around all sports for a guy like him. Oh, he gets injured all the time. Is he going to be healthy? Is he not going to get injured? And just being able to brush all that off, and he's having a heck of a start to this year. It's great to see for somebody that heading in as a bottom of the rotation, and now they're one of the best pitchers on the team.
Yeah. Yeah, and
absolutely.
reliable. He's been so reliable.
Yeah, I mean, for Rodón, actually both. Both I was excited about coming out of spring training, truth be told. And Rodón, especially, I saw that evolution because the thing that was the question mark for him is when is he going to learn how to actually pitch? Because he relied so heavily on that stuff that he had. And after so many injuries, you can't throw that curveball with the same amount of snap. You can't have that much velocity on your fastball all the time. Like you can't be a max effort guy. And how are you going to adjust to it? And I think under Cooper, he didn't have that voice to kind of help him understand how to be a better pitcher and how to actually pitch. And it's the same thing that I saw from Cease and flashes that, to your point, Darrin, it's all about that release point where I've been talking with a lot of people who have been frustrated with Cease on Twitter, and they compare him to, Ronaldo Lopez or Gavin Floyd or some of these other guys. And I'm like, the good thing about Cease is that all of his problems are mechanical. Like that's easy to fix. Like mentally, he's there. He's a gamer. You never see him give up on an inning or a pitch. But he just, I don't know if it's adrenaline or what, but he tends to be all over the place with his release points, and hitters pick up on it and they either hit it or they know what's coming and they know to lay off. And that start was one of the first times I saw him consistently kind of hit those same points all the way throughout the game. And I do think you'll see more of it going through the season. But all that being said, Kopech's been so damn impressive. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets more spot starts to kind of help give some guys breathers in between starts, especially if they get roughed up.
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys about that as well, because I know our Southside Sox colleague Crystal a few weeks ago kind of caught some fire because she suggested that
how dare
Kopech,
she?
Right, exactly.
She disturbed the force of the Cease bandwagon.
Yeah, she mentioned like, hey, Kopech should start and not Cease.
Over Cease, yeah.
Yeah, which now, I mean, it's a little slightly different idea, but
there was nothing wrong with that idea when she brought it up.
And people really
people
took
got
offense
way
to it.
too upset about it, but yeah.
She was right.
No, but to your point, I mean, it was nearing the point where I thought Kopech was going to get switched in place of Cease.
Yeah. Well, he still might too.
They still might.
Yeah.
And I think where my concern with Kopech going into the season is that I was never convinced that he would think of himself as anything other than a starter. And now that he's starting to perform at a level that he's starting games and performing at a very high level, will he start pushing more for that type of role? And how do the White Sox respond to that? Because yes, he's on an innings limit, but that doesn't mean that he can't be a spot starter or sixth starter, or maybe they throw him in the rotation as the season goes on. Like that could still happen. But then what do you do with the other guys to kind of help balance that out? Because you still have a need for relief guys that can go 3 or 4 innings if the shit hits the fan from your starter.
I think it'll definitely be a good problem to have if you find Cease gradually improving, and then you have to find out, do you want to keep him or do you want to transition Kopech into a starting role? It's definitely good to have as many good pitchers as you can.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm excited because, if you got good guys that are starting and they're pitching longer into games, that makes the bullpen better. That shortens the game for you. That makes that part of the game easier. And then it really does it boils down to the offense. And I do think Grandal will turn it around. I know I'm one of like 4 people that feel
I
that
think so
way.
too. I've seen everything about it. I'm like, he's gonna be fine. I feel like I agree with you, Tommy. So
So we just
yay.
have to find the one of the 4 of the 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's you, me, like Jordan Lazowski, and like maybe another person that's like still like looking at StatCast numbers, being like, "There's a chance."
I'll take that company. That's good company.
But I mean, beyond that, it's just I do think it comes down to what is Rick Hahn going to do as the season goes on, as the stakes get higher, to push the team over the top. And that might come down to how well the prospects do now that minor league baseball's starting this upcoming week. So you can look at some of the minor league guys. I know the Sox have been incredibly aggressive with their minor league rosters. You got Jake Berger playing in Charlotte, which I have no idea how that's going to work out, but I wish him the best. And you have guys like Rutherford and Sebi Zavala, a lot of other guys that have been kind of fringe prospects that haven't necessarily made a name for themselves, but could also play their way into being viable trade chips for the White Sox, which I think is critical for the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is on that same vein, but I mean, that is one thing that, and I know like we can talk about the lineups all day, and I have days too where I'm like, damn it. But I do think that has been a good thing to see throughout this early part of the season. Like all of these guys, even though we've been talking about, yeah, we don't really have the depth, I feel like we have gotten to a point where we have more depth than we had because they've actually been playing. Some of these newer guys actually have experience. They have numbers so that if they do, even like some of the roster people, if they'll end up being like good trade pieces, basically. So that's good. But yeah, that with all of the minor leaguers, that'll be super interesting.
I think the only sure thing is that no matter what, Jake Lamb will always have a roster spot.
Darrin, how do you feel about Jake Lamb?
I think he knows that Tony La Russa follows a different porn account than Steve Stone, and he's keeping it quiet in return. It's to be on the 40 man.
I don't know, man. I could see I could see them being into the same thing.
Yeah, Darrin, would you like to share with us your recent few encounters with Steve Stone, one of the voices of the White Sox on our broadcast?
Well, the most recent one this morning, I was just punching around and saw one of his tweets, and my cursor got over his profile and then said, following 33. I'm like, oh, well, it was 32. I'm kind of curious. I'll click on it, and I see these 2 ladies in chains holding a whip, and the bio says, like, we like to torture men or something and follow our OnlyFans. That's kind of interesting. I thought I'd share that with the fine folks on Twitter, and it must have made the rounds to Mr. Stone as I ended up getting blocked.
Damn. So you didn't tag him or anything? Did anybody like snitch you out, or how do you think?
I didn't
I'm
think
sure
so.
somebody snitched him out.
Yeah. I mean, I just assume anything you post about him, it gets to him.
I didn't see anybody tag him, but I mean, if he only follows a short amount of people, and including me, and maybe that's how it got to him, he just happened to see it.
Well, that's hilarious and good detective work. Although, I mean, I think I saw like he hasn't unfollowed that account.
No.
That's amazing. I think that's like my favorite part of this whole thing. Like seeing it was like, okay, that's hilarious. But then the fact he's like, I'm not unfollowing this is like, it's amazing. I hope he never does.
Unfollowing it. He unfollowed it now because he's down to 31.
Damn, Steve.
Yeah, so it was at 33. So he unfollowed them and then he blocked me. So it's at 31.
It's at 31 now.
Man. Well, I don't know if this will ever make Steve. Probably not. But I think you should follow your heart and your sexual interests.
Yeah, I had somebody in my quote. I didn't know who it was.
I think it was. But, oh no, I said something to you about king shaming you.
Oh, somebody else said that too. I was like, oh yeah. That's not what I'm doing. I just thought it was kind of interesting. I thought I'd share it with the.
It was funny.
Folks on Twitter to see what they thought. I'm like, hey,
it was very funny.
Whatever consensual things you want to do in the privacy of your own whatever, be my guest.
Hey, I would rather be tortured by them than by the White Sox. So I'm okay with it.
That's how he deals with his pain. He's like,
exactly.
I need a spanking. I've been bad. Nobody will spank me. Anyway, I mean, if you're only following 30-something people, and that's one of the
people are going to notice.
You follow.
Yeah.
I liked that fun fact, and I was really hoping he'd keep following it, but damn.
It looked like that's what was going to happen. That'd be the biggest FU to me.
I think he just forgot to switch from his burner account to,
Is he Al's cheesy beef?
Probably, yeah.
It was him the whole time. Didn't they identify? I think they've identified who. Yeah.
Someone named Orlando, thanks to our good friend Carrie of the Sox Twitter Bureau of Investigation.
Yeah, that guy used to have an account, his own account. I remember him because he would always drop things in a similar way he did as Al's cheesy beef. So I was kind of like, that is very disappointing and boring, but exciting at the same time. Like, you just did this on your normal account.
Yeah, but now he's a food item.
Yeah. A found out food item. Faux food. So, cool. Darrin, how many games have you been to?
The one this year, that was my first one. I've been to, usually it's been my dad and I, we try to go to at least one a year. And it started out as an alternative to prom because it's very expensive. And I said, hey, I probably wouldn't enjoy that. I'd probably enjoy going to a Sox game more, and it would cost way less. And so usually our once a year thing is stop in Kankakee, get some Bo's Mott's Beefs and a chili dog, and then drive up to the game. So the first one was, I think it was 10-1. It was Giolito versus Keuchel, and the one run was a Trace Thompson solo home run.
Yes.
And the next year was supposed to be around, because prom is usually around my birthday too, so around this time. It got snowed out, and the rescheduled game ended up being Dylan Cease's debut. So we got to go to that one.
Oh.
And obviously nothing last year, and then the one this year. And I actually got our high school coach, he knows, I guess, a Budweiser rep who works with the Sox. And so he kind of gave me a thank you present for doing PA for 3 years. He said, hey, we got third base seats.
Awesome.
Or first base seats. So I got to see Giolito versus DeGrom when Giolito was actually good.
Yeah.
That's good.
He'll be back,
nice.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Don't sleep on him. He'll be back. I have faith in him. I'll get aggressive about
what
it.
You brought up about Cease, the mechanics thing, is kind of similar to with Giolito, where it's like, hey, maybe try stepping closer to first instead in the middle of the rubber, and then all of a sudden he drops his ERA back.
Just flicks. Yeah. Sometimes that's all it takes.
I think the most famous one is Randy Johnson and Nolan Ryan. Hey, try stepping on the front of your foot instead on your heel. All of a sudden, a Hall of Fame career.
Right? Yeah.
That is crazy. I mean, and I think that like any sport, you find what like clicks and what finally works, and it's different for different people. And then once you got it, it's like, okay, but you still get in slumps. So that's one reason I'm still like, he's got it. And Giolito has, all of the pitchers right now are more supported than they have been since they've been with the White Sox. So I feel good for everybody's trajectory right now, especially because we have seen so many kind of under Don Cooper lost cases start turning it around like crazy. So I am feel pretty calm about that, but I do get pissed off when they're put in situations where it's like, man, they're done. They're done. Just take them off or something's not right. So, yeah, I think it'll keep being good. They're in a good place.
Yeah, and I don't know if either of you guys saw this, but there's a really nice clip from John Smoltz on MLB Network where he was talking about guys learning to pitch, because he brought up the fact that all of the college and high school players now, they're max effort guys. And the minute that they get hurt, they just lose it because they don't know how to pitch. They're just so used to just maxing out velocity and relying on that to get by that when you need them to do more, they're not capable of doing it. And that's where I think Katz has really just been a huge help for the Sox organization, because the Sox org, I don't know if they were the first, but it felt like they were one of the more prominent orgs where everything was about velocity and increasing velocity. And, you know, if it wasn't just solely your fastball, the most we'll work on a secondary pitch for you is your cutter. Like that's all we're going to do. And everything had to be, you know, as hard as you possibly can go. And now you have guys that are learning their secondary pitches, learning the feel of their pitches. And it makes me worried sometimes when guys like Crochet are throwing 94 instead of 104. But as long as they are learning how to pitch and work through games and work through tough situations, that's all that matters.
Yeah. The Crochet stuff is rough. But yeah, you're right. I mean, not every game you can throw like that. It's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. It's not. Yeah. So that'll be how long? I know Garrett Crochet, he's injured, right?
He's on the 10-day IL with a strained back of some sorts, which didn't sound great to me, but it's supposedly minor.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, he gets injured frequently.
He's been hurt quite a bit, so I'm just kind of like, can you just stay in one piece for an extended period of time?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminds me, not as in Rodon's way where he came out and it was like he was just expected to be good, but with Crochet's start, it is a little bit like, oh man, be careful. Be careful.
This is the downside of the Chris Sale comparison, where it's like, yeah, you know, Chris Sale was amazing, but once he started getting hurt, like he's been hurt lately, that doesn't look so good in terms of a career trajectory.
Yeah. I think I saw too that this was hopeful in relation, to all pitchers, but our guys especially. I think it was for Carlos Rodón, his no-hitter, he was like only the second pitcher that had like Tommy John surgery to ever throw a no-hitter, which is insane. But great. I mean, that's hopeful. Like I was like, holy crap. That's very hopeful for those guys and any pitcher that's had it.
I mean, unfortunately, I think that will be a more common occurrence just based on how prevalent Tommy John surgery has become.
Yeah. And like you said, kind of the focus on velocity. Yeah. Yay. Let's try to avoid
We've hit the pit of despair.
We've reached it. Hey, our usual pit of despair discussion, though, often has been depth, but also Adam Eaton. And look at Adam Eaton now. Kind of.
Okay, not today, because I think, he didn't strike out again. I was going to say he probably has 4 strikeouts now. But
it's because he got suspended. He got suspended needlessly. I will die on that hill.
Yeah, I didn't know you could be suspended for being an asshole, but here we are.
He wasn't even come on.
There was no reason for him to get up and try to fight somebody just because he got knocked off the base.
He's small.
It was ridiculous.
He has to be tough.
He's not Nick Madrigal, though. Like, that's something I would expect from him, where it's like, okay, calm down, Sparky. Like, go.
We talked about this red ass.
Yeah.
They both got it.
They both have the red ass factor.
Yeah.
They do.
Now that
Yeah,
was a fun day going after Cleveland fans on Twitter. It's the whole point. Oh, he wasn't trying to push him off the bag. It doesn't matter if he was trying to. He did.
yeah, that's why I'm like, whatever. I would have gotten mad too.
I mean, also, he's a professional athlete. They have control over their bodies to the extent that man knocked him off on purpose. And that's fine. If you want to do that, that's fine. That's called gamesmanship. Just own it. Like, it's the same thing as not moving your foot out of the way and then being like, oh, I didn't know that Rodón was throwing a perfect game.
Oh my God.
It's like,
Yeah.
own it.
That was supremely I was at the no-hitter game, which was awesome. And that I almost lost it because I was like, what the fuck? Yeah. Everyone knows, you liar. We all know.
It wasn't a fastball either. I mean, that was such a slow pitch. He had all the time in the world to move, and he just was like, oh, yep, that hit my toe. All right, I'm going to take my base now.
Yeah.
I will say I don't really have a problem with that as much as a lot of people did. Just because, I mean, still in the grand scheme of things, your goal is to win the game. And if you're getting on base, that helps people. And, I mean, it wasn't like it was close to the inside part of the plate and he just kind of did that. I mean, it hit his foot, so that meant it had to be off the plate fairly.
It was off by a substantial amount.
And he still got the no-hitter, so he still got to celebrate with the team.
Still got the accolades.
Yeah. But it wasn't perfect. So just kidding. My brother though texted me and was like, well, that's cool you saw a no-hitter, but it could have been a perfect game. I was like, shut up.
Okay, isn't your brother a Tigers fan?
Yes, my brother is a Tigers fan, and
okay, you should just replay. I can't remember the pitcher's name now, but the one that got robbed of a perfect game because of a bad call at first.
I should do that.
No,
I also don't know what it is.
Yes, thank you.
First name, but
is it Andres Colorado? No,
that's the Rockies guy.
That's the Rockies guy.
Armando Galarraga.
There we go.
Yeah, I can do that. Actually, no, not now because my brother will he uses the moment, so I'll have to store it and then wait.
Save it exactly.
Yeah. During this last game, I'm looking at my texts. He was saying shit to me, and I was like, and that we talked about, that was a very, very bad game for us. Especially because it was a bad game for Detroit. They started the bad game, and we were like, yeah. And then, of course, we fucked up at the end of the game.
The bed. Yeah, exactly.
I was like, this is very predictable at this point. And somebody even called it. They were like, why do I have a feeling we're going to blow this at the end? But yeah, so throughout the whole series, he was kind of he will trash talk at the worst times. But he did acknowledge, he was like, wow, this got ugly. And I was like, I know. It's very annoying. But
there's wondering after that Giolito game if a team had ever won when committing 5 errors.
Man, I don't know. That would be interesting, actually.
I don't think so.
We should look this up.
I think they even, in the broadcast, they had brought up that it was the most errors a victorious team had facing the White Sox since the early Brewers days, because it was when Jose Valentin was on the Brewers. So this would be late 90s Brewers, where they had 4 errors and still beat the White Sox.
And they had all the errors fairly early in the game.
Yeah.
Before or during the 5th, something like that. They were all pretty early in the game.
They were pretty early on, but I mean, there were a couple of other plays where they probably could have called them errors as well. So
yeah,
that was rough.
Yeah, that was, like I mentioned earlier, I think for me that was the first game this season. The Boston game was bad, but I was like, this is just an off game.
That was just a bad game. Yeah.
Right. And it was a weird time, a ton of things can do that. But that game, I was like, all right, there's patterns. Please, can we stop doing these things? Because they're hurting us. And Me personally.
Now,
yeah.
that being said, speaking of division rivals, do you guys think that the Royals are a legit threat to the White Sox for the... No. Okay, Darren's already saying no.
This was an argument on Twitter a few days ago with a certain Royals fan. But I
didn't know Royals fans existed, so I never have that argument on Twitter.
I can check here now. I don't know if it's been different, but as far as their weighted runs created plus, the xFIP minus, they're all below average.
They are.
As far as batting, starters, and relievers. And I just don't see them doing anything. I mean, they're going to slump at some point here, and they'll fall back down 3 or 4, and we'll never have to talk about them after June, hopefully.
I hope. Oh, go ahead, Keelin. Sorry.
Haven't the White Sox had like a similar start before too, where it was like, oh yeah, we're doing good, and then you fall off in like June or something.
2016.
It's 2016. Yeah, that was a fun year.
It's great at the beginning, and then pain all the way down. It's like a roller coaster.
I mean, the only thing with the Royals is that I even think back to when they won the World Series, and I still question that in my mind because it doesn't make sense in my brain. But like, they won despite having, like, you want to talk about it, winning in spite of your manager. Like, the Royals with Ned Yost was like the poster child of how to win in spite of your manager. And nothing about their winning made sense, but they did it continuously. And that's the only reason why I bring it up, because I'm just getting that same feeling in the back of my mind being like, yeah, I've seen this movie before, and like the Royals just keep winning even though it doesn't make sense for them to. And I don't know if this is going to be a year for them to do that or not.
I don't think it will, and I hope it isn't.
Yeah, I mean, it would just be frustrating as hell. Like, like all the energy that Sox fans spent on like the Twins and Cleveland, and nope, here come the Royals, just like fucking everything up.
Yeah. Well, and then I saw Patrick Mahomes tweeting about Kopech, and I was like,
Kopech, yep.
Get out of here. Keep your paws off him. Don't come over here with your football team, your baseball team, and touch our boys. That sounds creepy, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Don't touch our boy.
Where are we going with this?
Don't touch my little blonde boy, Kopech.
Now,
He's had enough.
If I can hop in here, we got some very recent from the NFL draft. Our guy from Illinois, Kendrick Green, just got picked by the Steelers.
Did he finally? Nice. That's a good place for him.
The 87th pick overall in the 3rd round.
That makes me happy.
You guys should talk about. We can switch from baseball to talking about Justin Fields.
Oh, that was.
I'm just so excited.
No, it is exciting. I mean, I'm not even a Bears fan, and quite frankly, I was like, look, the Bears drafted. Well, I didn't know he was black. Actually, I asked my husband because I saw everybody freaking out, and I was like, because I don't pay attention to college football anymore, and I was like, why is everybody freaking out about another like quarterback? And then I asked my husband, like, oh, is he black? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like, what a miracle. Yeah, exactly. It was like amazing work by the Bears. I'm sure it was painful for them, but amazing. Jeez. Yeah, Tommy, what did you think? I kind of asked you about it last night, but you didn't really.
No, I'm still in shock. And I think it was telling that Matt Nagy at Fields' pro day was like in his ear like the entire time, just talking to him about plays and philosophy and all of that. And I didn't think anything of it at the time because I'm like, all right, the Bears have like 8 bad quarterbacks, and I don't see Fields like falling low enough where that would ever be a possibility. So I just kind of thought, oh, that's nice that he's mentoring him and whatever. But then it was just like, as the draft started taking shape, I was like, oh my gosh, one of these guys could fall to him. But my fear was really just that Mac Jones is going to get drafted by the Bears, which, like, Aaron, I don't know how you feel about him, but I'm just like, there's nothing about him that seems like a pro quarterback. Like, he just looks like he essentially rolled up to Alabama, and Nick Saban's like, sure, kid, go for it. And yeah, if I had all of that talent to throw to, I would have Gaudy numbers too. But he's not necessarily somebody that's going to, flourish in the NFLs. But I thought that's who Pace was going to want. And so I was very happy that Nagy apparently vouched for Fields and said, this is the guy that I want. And not only that, but then even today, traded up again to get some actual protection for him, because the Bears have always struggled with offensive line since Kyle Long has been hurt. And it's like just really weird to go through a draft where I haven't been actively questioning everything that the Bears are doing. And I don't know how to process that. So that's why I didn't really have an answer for you, because this is all new for me, where it's like, oh, like things are happening the way they're supposed to. I don't understand why that is. Now, yes, you could bring up the fact that the Bears are still paying Nick Foles and Andy Dalton, and there's $13 million wasted there, and they gave up Kyle Fuller because they wanted to keep one of them around and all of that madness. But just for a day, they did the right thing, and that's impressive.
I've been very happy with the draft and just those first two picks. And you have two guys, more so for me, my faith is in Fields, but you have two guys who you pick later than they were projected to be, and they could both be the best at their position in the draft. And you saw with Fields, the difference between him and all the other quarterbacks that have been drafted from Ohio State was, you saw with him this year, he was first in percentage of passing yards from the air. So he's throwing it downfield. He's not letting his receivers pick up the yards for him, more so you could say with a guy like Mac Jones, who has Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith there for him.
Right.
He's using his arm to get the yards. And Tevin Jenkins, a guy who was part of the great success that Chuba Hubbard had there at Oklahoma State, and you even saw the quote where, can't say it on here, but he seems like he just wants to really get after it and is ready to go right away into a starting role. And having those two guys, hopefully Fields gets in there earlier in the season to get some starts, because I think he's the real deal.
Yeah, I think he will. Because, I mean, if you have your head coach kind of pushing for something like that, and I don't think I've ever heard Matt Nagy that vocal in support of any of the other quarterbacks that the Bears have had, I think he'll probably end up starting pretty soon. How do you feel about your Titans?
Go Titans.
I know.
I mean, we have Derrick Henry, so.
Oh.
I actually, so as I mentioned, I don't follow college football at all anymore. I'm not attached to any teams at all. So I'm very out of the loop on that. So I saw we got somebody and I have no idea who he is. I have no idea. I liked it on Twitter, but I was like, I don't know. Honestly, ever since Marcus Mariota, all of that happened, I'm like, it is what it is. We're not terrible. We've been doing pretty good for the Titans the past few years. So I'm like, I'm not going to ask questions, and then I'm still deciding what I want to do with my Saints fandom. So, yeah.
You got Jabu with his eating the W and all that stuff.
No.
Get excited.
No.
And the other quarterback that can't throw but runs.
Taysom. our miracle Mormon.
Between the two of them, you have a complete quarterback.
We can just like stitch them together. Can we put in 2 at one time? Can you guys change the football rules? Just kidding. What about
I used
Aaron?
to have
Aaron
partial. I used to
Sorry.
have partial Saints fandom because I got to see Justin Hardy out there killing it on special teams, and now he's with the Jets, so I don't really care about the Saints anymore.
That's fair. I don't know that I do either. So all of the players I was attached to, that's my problem. And I'm gonna have to learn to do that with baseball, is still being a fan of the team when all of my favorite players have left. So I'm working on that.
I think it's easier to do in baseball than it is in other sports, though.
Okay, that's good to know. I'm preparing for my first large heartbreak whenever that. I know it'll arrive one day, but I don't know who it'll be. So yeah. You're speculating?
I've been thinking about as far as players that I like on other teams, especially for Illinois, where you don't have a lot of them compared to if it was Alabama. I want to try to get more jerseys of players that are in the NFL. And I was going to try to get a Nick Allegretti one because he was starting in the Super Bowl. And that's the one I asked around because I didn't want to make it seem like, oh, you're a Chiefs fan. Oh, I'm cheering for the name on the back. This is a
specific guy.
I'm cheering for the name on the back. I'm not cheering for the name on the front.
I think that's fine.
Now, Kendrick Green out there, we can get him. And then for the NBA, too, I'm sure we'll get Io, hopefully in the first round.
Yep.
Wherever he goes to. That would be awesome.
I really think it's going to happen. Just throwing it out there. They need a point guard.
Favorite teams.
What? Did you ask me a question?
Did I?
I thought, I don't know. You guys both said something at the same time and then it got quiet.
Oh, I just said they need a point guard.
Oh.
And then Darrin said both of his favorite teams.
Yeah, playing for Illinois and then for the Bulls. That'd be cool.
I'm on my island here where I'm like,
yeah, I mean, you could just start yelling out words. That's fine.
Yeah, my team, my school was like recovering from Hurricane Katrina and all the sports were messed up. So I don't know. We went to March Madness one time in the past like 14 years or however long it's been. I don't even know.
Has it been that long?
That's when I started college. 14 years ago? 15 years ago? Oh no. 13.
You see how horrified Darrin is, like, hearing this? He's like, just my God, you're so old.
Just wait. I finished college 11 years ago.
That's not that long ago.
Tommy, yeah, 2011. 2010, sorry. Tommy, how old were you, or how long ago did you finish college?
Just a few years before you. There's not that much of an age gap.
Yeah, sure. Old man.
I did think it was kind of funny when you said that thing yesterday. It was like, I'm old enough to be your mom. It's like, are you talking about like normal? Or are you talking about?
No, it would have been a weird situation. Yeah, it wouldn't have been a good situation. Like, not a socially acceptable situation. But when you were like, I don't know why. I think because most people in White Sox Twitter, they're not all of them, but a lot of them are older. So I think in my mind, I kind of just like average ages. So even though I knew you were younger and I knew you were in college still, in my mind, you were like still like early 20s. And so when you were like, oh, I'm no longer a teenager, that was a moment for me that I was like, holy shit, I'm old. And yeah, thanks. Thanks for that.
Quite a bit through Twitter and work. I used to go out to work where people's like, oh, I thought you were 23, 24. It's like, I think that's a compliment.
It's a compliment.
It's a compliment. For the way I see it is, I look like I'm 12 because I can't grow facial hair worth of anything. So I'm assuming that's a testament to my maturity, I guess. So I'll take that as a compliment when people, I thought you were older.
Yeah, I'd say so.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. Congratulations. You're an old in spirit. Join us.
Join us in old spiritdom.
Now I'm 364 days from being able to do some 108ing.
There you go.
Yeah. That's exciting.
That will be a massive party.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully there's a White Sox home game that day. So that'd be a fun way to do that.
Just take
Yeah.
over Goose Island.
Are you either of you, are you going to try to go to any games for the rest of the season? / how many, or are there any particularly you want to see?
I will be I'll try to go to quite a few this summer.
Flying or driving, maybe.
I'll road trip it in.
Nice. What about you, Darrin?
I've been talking to my parents. I've been trying to, I think in the summer it'll be easier just with, no school, so I won't really have anything going on. And I know my dad and I want to get one with him, but I've been talking to my mom just because I know the people from the 108 now, as opposed to the last few years. Like, hey, there's these people from Twitter, but now they know me a lot better.
Yeah.
So I know Mrs. Beefloaf, Kirsten Ramos, talks to my mom quite a bit on Facebook and Twitter. So I think it'd be fun to have her up there for a game and talk to the folks there.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. Your mom seems awesome. Yeah. It's
She
been
is.
nice to kind of see her around. It's always cute when people's family, like, at large is on. Like, oh. Super cute. Yeah. I think I'm going to a game tomorrow, and I believe our Iowa counterparts are coming in, so that's going to be interesting. I've never met those guys in person. So Iowa White Sox, Ryan and Jason, never met him, and I'm excited to hear him yell in his accent at Liam if Liam plays. And Iowa Zach, so that'll be interesting. But yeah, I'm trying to go to one like at least every 2 weeks. There's no excuse not to, but I like my naps, so. As Tommy knows.
Sometimes the nap weighs out.
Man,
how far of a drive would it be for you?
It's about a 10-hour drive.
Oh, I didn't know you're that far away.
Yep. So, but I was planning on coming up over the summer anyway. But I would definitely like to try to make it to at least a handful of Sox games. And then because I'm over in South Carolina, so I'll be going to at least a few Charlotte games this year too, which I'm excited for because I've always wanted to go to that ballpark. It's supposed to be one of the most beautiful ballparks in the country.
Awesome. That's exciting.
So is there any buzz in South Carolina about Trevor Lawrence getting picked number 1?
Of course. One to happen, but like everybody is from South Carolina, Georgia, or Florida, or Alabama, and it's just like that's all it is. And I'm just like, how it doesn't seem like it should be possible that every professional football player is just like from this SEC. It's just like how's that happen? But
because it's the best. Sorry.
Stop.
I'm biased.
Stop. All right,
Well,
we're ending this episode before Keelin says "Roll Tide" or some shit like that.
I will never say that. I will never. Actually, I would, just to piss everybody off.
Yeah, you would. I know. You've done it before.
I'm an alumni. I can say Roll Tide, sort of.
Uh-huh.
Do grad school degrees count? I don't know. I went to a game. It was cool.
Did you?
I went to one Alabama game, I think, when I was in grad school there.
Okay.
I went to tailgates. That was fun. That was more my speed. But yeah, at the games, I was like, I don't really care about this. So it's a huge stadium. That part was the crazy. It's so huge. We've talked about this before, but my brother played college football at Georgia, and I grew up going there the most. And I went to Auburn a few times too. And they're both big and like fun, great, like to party at. Well, I was a child, but like the vibe is good. Mm-hmm. But Alabama was so freaking weird. It was like, I feel like I'm in some kind of Greek like Coliseum. It was insane. So that part was interesting, but I'm okay with never going back.
Yeah. The big house is similar in Michigan, where it's just like you have entered a large Greek coliseum, and it's like I don't know how all these people can be in one place safely during a game, but here we are.
Yeah, especially now.
Well,
pandemic.
now
That'll be
yeah,
but that'll be interesting too. Like once we get back to something like that. Did they? So I feel like I read this, but I do not know. It's stadiums here, like Sox and the Cubs. They're not going to be at capacity for the whole season. Is that true? Have you guys seen that? I saw that floating around somewhere, and I was like, really?
That actually surprises me since they.
Well, and I don't know. Like, I don't know where that came from. So,
but Lightfoot just opened up Navy Pier. The United Center is at 25% capacity now, and she also said that summer festivals are on the table for this year. So that made me think that if nothing else, they would probably increase the capacity, if not to full, most of the way there by maybe June or July.
Yeah, that's kind of the trajectory I anticipated too, like slowly opening it. But
yeah,
I think Crystal may have said something about it. But yeah, I was like, oh, I haven't even thought really. I just assumed as more and more people got vaccinated, they'd open up more. But
yep.
Yeah.
I saw they made it quarter capacity for the rest of the United Center games this year, which was probably 2 or 3. But I figure with the Sox and Cubs being outdoor, they would probably bump it up more than they would for the Blackhawks and the Bulls. So I guess we'll just have to see once they keep putting the vaccines in.
Yeah. Well, Darrin, I was curious. I wanted to ask you, I know you're still in college, and as we've talked about, you turned 20 now. So what are you kind of looking to do professionally, or I know you're doing a lot of writing. What are you going to do with
the rest of your life, Darrin?
Yeah, but I know you're interested in like sports journalism. I know you've joined Southside Sox. I know you do stuff with 108. You've been writing there a lot. So I was just kind of curious, like, is that something you're looking to do more, or,
And the biggest goal would be a guy like Jason Benetti, Joe Buck, Jim Nance, do that play-by-play for a network, and I'd love to be able to do multiple sports. And obviously that's a very, closed role, and a lot of people won't get it. So I've been trying to do a lot of things within sports media just because it's such a broad industry with a lot of people that are in it. So whatever path I land on, if someone wants to offer me, through writing or announcing or doing PA or whatever, then wherever I land would be great. But the big role would be doing play-by-play, which I've gotten to do quite a bit this year for BTN Plus, doing the student broadcast. A lot of softball recently, a lot of tennis, a lot of soccer. I've done wrestling too. So once I get 2 more years of that, I think that'll be fun.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's a pretty big deal.
I've been thinking about asking too about doing public address. I mean, I know this year it would be just so tough because pretty much every game I'd be working. So, but hopefully next year when they don't have every sport going at the same exact time, it'll be a little bit easier to schedule that out.
Awesome. Super exciting. Well, hopefully, yeah, there will be more and more opportunities. It sounds like you got your foot in the door really early, and that's always super helpful. So cool.
Well, that concludes episode 8 of the Killer Bees podcast. Once again, Darrin, thank you so much for joining us over your birthday weekend, and hopefully you continue to enjoy yourself. And thank you, Keelin, as always. And we will see you all very soon.